Here at Wyandotte Martial Arts at the DCA, we teach traditional Korean Tung Sudo. It is a well-rounded martial art that has been around for hundreds of years. The form that we do now was formulated and invented and developed by great Grandmaster Hwang Ki, and it was during World War II that he did this. So our Grandmaster that we train under, Grandmaster Dale Droulard, was the first American black belt in Tung Sudo. And so basically Tung Sudo was born in this country, pretty much here in Wyandotte.
Our organization is under Grandmaster Dale Droulard, who received his black belt in 1957 from Korea. He was the first non-Korean to receive a black belt. I've been involved since 1970. I've been running our club since 2004.
Traditional Tung Sudo is a very well-rounded art. It not only develops the student physically, but also emotionally and spiritually. And we say that in terms of your energy, your focus, your discipline. Physically, it's well-rounded because you're using all parts of your body. You're using your arms, your core, your legs. So it's very beneficial physically. And for us adults, it's very relaxing. It's very mind-filling. You have to memorize, so it's good for your brain too.
I heard about the program here at Downriver by word of mouth. There was another student my child's age who attended the program who told my daughter about it. And I feel like my daughter has benefited from the program because she's gained some self-confidence. She's learned very quickly. The teachers here are great, and she's definitely made a lot of new friends.
Well, going back early on, all of my family members, aunts, my uncle, my mother, they were all involved in creative pursuits. My mother made clothing, and from very early age, I was fascinated with the sewing machine and with the fabric, and I just couldn't wait to get my hands on that sewing machine. So I started out sewing and really working with fabric from a very early age, like about 12 or 13. And the area I'm from, Wyandotte, was a big textile area, lots of mills, lots of fabric mills. So fabric was cheap, and it was a lot of fun to make my clothing, make other people's clothing, so really it was the creative people around me. It was my mother, my aunts, my uncle who was a portrait artist. They kind of set me on that path of being creative. It just seemed natural, it seemed good, it seemed worthwhile. So it was kind of early on. I saw other people around me doing art, being involved in creative pursuits, making things, knitting, crocheting, sewing things. So that's pretty much where my inspiration came from and my desire to create. See every form of art, whether it be textiles or it's painting, it's a puzzle. It's always a puzzle in my head. And the final resolution of the puzzle is what engages me in the process. So if it's something out of fabric, I like a lot of functional sorts of objects. I went from purses to more like tote bags because they're so functional, they're easy to carry, and they just evolved with me. So as I began to examine what works well in a purse, you know, what really is needed so you can organize your stuff and have it readily available. So that process, that thinking about what is needed here, informs fabric arts and clothing. Do you want pockets on your jacket? Well, of course, pockets are useful. So you have to puzzle out, where will you put the pocket? What kind of pocket will it be? But if it's art that is a painting, there's kind of a different process because you want it to be visually pleasing. And so you're trying to please someone else, but also yourself. You're the first person that sees your art. And you have to decide, does this meet what I was trying to accomplish? And if it pleases you, maybe it'll please others. But at least I think there's that ethic behind it. Make something visually pleasing, make something visually satisfying. Make this value more, make this less. I think without art, well, I'm going to give you a little anecdotal example. I was at my dentist office, and this was out in Arizona, and I hate going to the dentist. I hate everything about it, but you have to go. So I'm sitting in the chair, and on the wall in front of me is a piece of art, and it's a floral. It's kind of an abstract floral. And I think of it, and it was a wonderful distraction. While I sat there, I focused on that piece of art, and it really let my mind go somewhere besides being in the dentist chair. And I concentrated on that painting. It was wonderful. If it had been a blank wall, if I had just been staring at a painted wall, I think I would have been more anxious. Several years back, I wrote a cookbook. And the reason I wrote a cookbook, I really wanted a way to honor family, mother, father, friends from my growing up period. So the way I connected with that was the title of the book is What Mama Knew and Daddy Grew, because my mother cooked, my father grew vegetables of an amazing quantity and description, enough to feed the whole neighborhood, and we only had a small little piece of land. But the family that nourished me, I wanted to have some recognition of what they had done for me, because they're gone. They're all gone. There's only the graveyard where you can find those people. I did not want them to be forgotten.
Fused glass is the process of combining pieces of glass together in the kiln. So what you do is you start out with a flat piece of glass, or your base, if you will, and then you stack other pieces of glass on top as your design elements. Then it goes in the kiln and it is melted at high temperatures, about 1400 degrees, and it becomes one piece. Then, if you want it shaped, it goes in the kiln a second time, and it's a process called slumping. So it goes in flat. So let's say this was flat. It would go into a mold or over a mold, and then it would take the shape of the mold in the kiln to get a plate, bowl, or a vase. For the kids, we made sun catchers. We started out with a 4-inch piece of clear glass, and you can put the colorful design pieces of glass onto your base piece. This was done with simple nipping and cutting techniques. And then for the adults, we're doing a choice of a plate, bowl, or a vase. And the same process, it is the same process whether you do something small or a large piece. You always stack glass on top of glass, and then it goes in the kiln. So for the adults, we're doing 8-inch pieces here, and these both started out as flat pieces of glass, this one white obviously, this one clear, and that black, and then different design elements were placed on top of it, and then they were put in the kiln and went through the process of slumping to take on the shape. When did fused glass start? Fused glass started years and years ago, but it gained popularity back in the early 2000s. It started to make its way into paint your own pottery studios because they were using the same kilns, and some of the slumping molds that we use are actually ceramic. But if you want to do the glass right, you do it in a separate kiln, an actual glass kiln. And so it has been around for decades. The biggest benefit of taking a fused glass class is to explore possibilities in your artistic world. Everyone is an artist. You have to just let yourself try new things. A lot of people don't even know what fused glass is. They automatically think about blown glass or stained glass. But fused glass is very simple. You can do very simple designs. All you're doing is nipping and stacking. We do have a lot of pre-cut pieces in case you don't want to do any cutting. But by doing fused glass, you're allowed to let yourself just be free and experiment with pretty pieces of glass and make a masterpiece.
Today we're going to do a demo. I've already prepped the canvas. I have a sketch drawn on here of this still life of onions. I have my palette that I usually use, and I'm using a number 6 flat brush. Right now, since I have the drawing down, I'm going to start putting local color on. And local color just means that if something's red, then I paint it red. I don't worry about it being the exact red. I just do the red, green, blue. So I'm going to start laying in that color right now. And up here, I'm going to kind of cheat the background. So I'm going to do a little unbleached, some purple, some white, a little bit of umber, a little bit of purple, and I'm just going to lay this color in real quick. So this is the basic color. I'm going to do this quick. I'll come back to this in a minute. This area, I think I'll do a little bit of purple and white to lighten that area up. I want this to be a highlight area. So I'm going to do something like this. Maybe a little bit more white. And over here, again, I'm just making this background up. I'm going to put a little bit of burnt sienna and some white. Up here, I'm going to make it a little darker, so I'm going to add some blue, purple, some unbleached titanium, and I'll make this a little bit darker up here. And that's a little too blue. I want this to be a little, and I often just gum the paint on and mix the colors as I'm scraping it onto the canvas. So have something like that, maybe a little bit more burnt umber here so that this flows into it. So I have something like that. Now I'm going to come in here into the onion portion. I'm going to do a little bit of burnt sienna and white. And this will be a little brighter. Maybe we could make this a little bit darker in here. I'm going to move down, do some red, some unbleached, and some yellow. And I am going to come down into here and in here and just put a little bit of yellow in. Come back up in here. Not too much. Okay, now I've got some nice brown. Maybe we'll add a little bit of yellow there to get it a little more orange, maybe a little bit of red. So I've got this kind of a thing happening. Okay, so you get the basic idea of the color that's being laid down. Okay, now I have most of my local color down. I have a orangey yellow for the onions. I have a little bit of purple and gray for the cloth, and I've got that red piece of paper laying there. So the local color has been established. Now what I'm going to do is focus on making the color a little bit more identifiable as far as how it shows up on the onions and define some of the smaller patterns. So I'll again go into the background. And I'm going to lighten this up a bit. And we're going to brighten that color up a little bit. Now, I initially put a little bit of gray color down because I like my first colors to be a little darker and a little grayer, and then I start building up the saturation and the lightness as I go. So we're going to add a little bit of red and white, a little red, white, and purple here. Too much. There we go. So see how then I'm going to let some of that initial brown show through. And these brush strokes are very loose. It's very impressionistic the way I'm painting this. I'll go back over top of this and use a little bit of white and red, which will make that pop. See the way that pops? That's real nice. It's got some real nice color in there. Burnt umber. And again, I'm just faking this background. Making up a background because the background on mine's a bunch of my paints. So we're down here. Oop, still got yellow on my brush. Umber, yellow. And I'll come up in here, get a little darker color, a little darker up in here. And then I'm going to use some sienna yellow and lighten up this area because I want this area to be kind of light here where this dark onion is. We'll darken that or lighten that up a bit. Now go back in on the onion, make this a little brighter here. There's some umber. Not too much. A little bit like that. Okay. And then we'll bring this down here. I want to gray this a little bit, maybe make it a little warmer, add some yellow so it stands off of that gray background. So I'm going to add something like this in here. And again, I'm going to keep some of this initial color showing through. I don't want to cover it all up. Okay, so I've established a few more smaller shapes and established some lighter colors and brought some things forward a little bit warmer. left the grays and the darker colors a little bit in the background. Now what I'd like to do is add a little bit of detail. So I've switched to a smaller brush. And this is usually when I add some of the darker colors and lighter colors. They're kind of what I put in last. Sometimes I'll already have established the darkest darks, but a lot of times I'll add them in last. So we'll take a little bit of burnt umber, some blue, and we'll start adding in these dark colors here. This is when I start to focus a little bit more and want to get kind of fine with the detail. Get the nice bright colors in there where they pop. There's some nice colors in here. Now I'm laying in the most intense colors. Since these onions are my main focus, I want to lay the most intense colors in on there. So I'm going to start adding detail there, but I'm always thinking of contrast, color, and shape. Some of this area around here won't be as detailed. I may go in and just add a little bit more light down here, which really makes that shadow pop off. Start getting into details of the cloth. Where I can see the texture of the cloth. Even some of these little roses that are in there, kind of plop those in different places. Put a little bit lighter red here over that dark red, and that gives that nice form. So I've got that. And I think I'm going to want to... Things in the foreground are always brighter. So I'm going to lighten... I want to keep it red because it's that red paper. I'm just going to brighten that up a bit. You can see how that pulled that foreground forward. This is kind of coming at you, and this is a little grayer, and it's going back a little bit more. So I've continued to lay in some lighter, brighter colors, defined some of the edges, made things a little bit crisper, made the darks dark. So the painting's shaping up pretty well now. So last, usually all I do is add just a few details, not many. And usually the details are on the main focus of the painting, which here are the onions. So I go back in and maybe make a little bit more brighter color, maybe do some ribs. Make that kind of pop out so it's coming forward towards you. Might add a few ribs here. And I may do a little bit more on it, but basically the composition's complete and most of the painting's complete. I may go in with a liner brush and put in some little more ribs and maybe define these this greenery a little bit more, but that's pretty much it. Okay, so the painting's pretty much done now. I've got in a lot of the local shapes and local colors, and they're well defined. The darks and the lights are well defined. I'll probably continue with some detail with a liner brush, but I think we're pretty much finished for today. So this was basically my process that I use when I do acrylic paintings. I'm happy with the composition, and this will probably be in the gift shop of the Downriver Council for the Arts once I'm complete. And I hope to see you there.